To mark the second anniversary since work started to create the Steam VR simulation of the 1851 Great Exhibition, in this video, as well as adding further exhibits, I am going to provide a tour. We start by Hyde Park's Prince of Wales Gate, between the West Lodge, built in 1846, and the East Lodge, added in 1851. The main entrance, under the arched transept roof, is not quite in the middle of the building. The western side of the building stretches 864 foot from the transept, whereas the eastern side is 48 foot longer, stretching 912 foot. The semicircular fascia of the transept roof is divided into 12 sections, and these have been utilized as a clock face. To allow the clock face to fit into a half rather than a full circle, the clock's hands are double-ended. As they drop below the horizontal at the right, the other end rises above the horizontal of the left. Passing into the entrance lobby, on either side we can see the ticket booths and turnstiles for day visitors. In the middle are the desks where season ticket holders are admitted. Here you can also see one of the mighty elm trees, the preservation of which led to the creation of the arched roof to fully enclose them. We now pass through the huge wooden doors into the south transept, and then through the park gates by Cottam and Hallam. In the centre of the south transept is an equestrian statue of Queen Victoria by Thomas Thornycroft. The original is lost, and so is represented here by a recreation. Lining both sides of the transept are sculptures, most by British sculptors. Now we come to the Crystal Fountain, 4 tons of glass, 27 foot high, with a basin 24 foot in diameter. The image of the fountain was adopted as a logo by Schweppes. The north half of the transept was similar to the south, sculptures on either side. Equestrian statues of Queen Victoria and Prince Albert by James Wyatt. The original plaster models at the exhibition are lost, represented here by Thomas Thornycroft's Victoria from Liverpool, and a recreation of Wyatt's Prince Albert. Next comes the Rowe and Hanson Fountain, beyond which is the stand of naturalist and taxidermist John Hancock. 4 of the pieces survive in the collections of the Great North Museum Hancock, and are modelled here. Beyond Hancock's stand are 2 more great elm trees and John Bell's Boy with Swan Fountain, now at the Coalbrookdale Museum of Iron. We now pass through the Coalbrookdale Gates. These are now in a slightly modified form on South Carriage Drive, where it crosses West Carriage Drive, just a few hundred yards from their location within the Great Exhibition building. We are now in the main refreshment court. Schweppes paid £5,500 for the rights to be the exclusive caterer for the Great Exhibition. The actual running of the refreshment courts was subcontracted. The main refreshment court was subcontracted to Mr. Younghusband. The west and east refreshment courts were managed by Mr. Masters. Continuing north, we approach the Queen's entrance. To the right of this is the Queen's private retiring room. Strategically placed planters help shield the ladies' and gentlemen's waiting rooms from direct view. Moving into the gentlemen's waiting room, we can see both urinals, and within individual cubicles, George Jennings' first public flushing toilets. Note the hand pump arrangement, similar to a modern marine head. Visitors were required to pay 1 penny to use these toilets, and although it may be apocryphal, this is said to be where the expression, "to spend a penny," comes from. Leaving the gentlemen's waiting room, and returning to the Crystal Fountain, we look west along the main avenue, or nave, which was devoted to Britain and its colonies. At the end of the western nave, immediately adjacent to the transept, is another recreation of a lost piece, Venus Disarming Cupid by Edward Davis. And on the southwest corner of where the nave and transept cross, yet another recreation, Archangel Michael Having Subdued Satan by John Graham Lough. Moving into the India section on the south side is a howdah, mounted on an elephant. However, the only stuffed elephant which could be located in England was an African elephant. Moving back to the nave, there are several sculptures where we have models of the actual item displayed at the exhibition. The Duke of Rutland, which was, until April 2024, in the marketplace in Leicester. The statue is now in storage during redevelopment of the site. Horse and Dragon, now in the grounds of Stratfield Say House. Sir William Follett, now in Westminster Abbey. In the Fine Art Court is the first newly added exhibit this update, Spring, by Thomas Wilkinson Wallace, now at Louth Museum in Lincolnshire. On the north wall is a map of Manchester in 24 sheets. Looking at the various copies of well-known paintings, one might be surprised to learn that paintings per se were not permitted as exhibits at the Great Exhibition. However, using a painting to demonstrate a reproduction technique was permitted. Returning to the nave, here is the rather long-winded, titled, "The Faithful Friend of Man Trampling Underfoot His Most Insidious Enemy," now at the Victoria and Albert Museum. Just west of this is The Mother, by John Henry Foley, now at the Royal Dublin Society. Turning south we enter the section devoted to the province of Canada, corresponding to modern-day Quebec and Ontario. Among the items in this section are a canoe, a sleigh, and a fire engine, which won a prize at the exhibition. Just south of the Canada section is the small area devoted to New Zealand. Currently we have just one exhibit here, a lithograph of John Alexander Gilfillan's painting of a native village or pa. From here we travel along the passage to the west, and then turn south into the British Sculpture Court. There were approximately 100 pieces displayed in this court. So far we have included about a third of these, some as models, others as cut-out billboard images until models can be generated. Including this impressive relief of the Baptism of Christ by John Edward Carew, the model being of the version at St. John the Baptist Church in Brighton. Leaving the British Sculpture Court we return to the nave. Here we pass a stone cross decorated with scenes from the Bible, either side of which are columns of madrepore marble from Devon. We pass a cabinet displaying papier-mâché goods and a decorated piano by John Broadwood, to reach the magnificent sculpture of brothers Lords Eldon and Stowell, now at University College, Oxford. Beyond that is a turret clock by Dent. After the exhibition, this clock was installed at King's Cross Station, where the mechanism remained in use for nearly 100 years, before being replaced with a more modern mechanism. Now we turn north into the machinery at Rest Court, where to our right we find the great hydraulic press, which was used to raise the box sections of the Britannia Bridge over the Menai Strait, the bridge having been completed in 1850. To our left is a crane by Fox and Henderson, the contractors that built the exhibition building. It is displayed holding an example of one of the trusses from which the building is constructed. Under the crane is a set of cast iron pipes by D.Y. Stewart of Glasgow. Also under the crane is a steam hammer by John Nasmyth. We will meet him again later in our tour in his other role as a keen amateur astronomer and artist. Beyond the steam hammer is the east end of the railway passage. Running west-east are 2 lengths of what we would now call standard gauge track, approximately 225 foot in length, stretching to the west wall of the building. The south track is devoted to locomotives, there being 9 standard gauge steam locomotives here, all of which are now included in the simulation. Unfortunately, none of these locomotives survive. We start with 2 LNWR locomotives, the Liverpool and Cornwall, between which is a locomotive weighing table by Pooley. Moving along the railway passage we pass the Hawthorne, the Kitson Aerolite, the Wilson double boiler tank engine, and the Fairbairn tank engine. Next comes Ariel's Girdle by William Bridges Adams, and next to this on the north track is the Southeastern Railway Composite Carriage No. 88, also by Adams. Continuing west we pass the rather cute-looking Little England by George England, and then Folkestone, the only locomotive of which there is a photograph in situ at the Great Exhibition. From this photograph we have been able to correctly reproduce the misspelling of both Dover and Folkestone. Whilst we have now covered the 9 British standard gauge steam locomotives, note there remains space on the south track. This is where the yet-to-be-modelled Impulsoria was displayed. Impulsoria was a horse-powered locomotive, which had undergone trials out of 9 Elms Terminus in 1850. There is one more steam locomotive in the railway passage, at the extreme west end the GWR Lord of the Isles. It is at the west end so that only a short section of broad gauge track is required. Passing through the exit door we come to a pair of greenhouses, and between them a granite obelisk, by W&J Freeman. This was installed in Whitechapel High Street in 1853, where it remained until destroyed due to a lorry crash in 1913. Turning south we pass level crossing gates by Charles Young and Company of Edinburgh, before coming to a display of chains and anchors by Brown Lennox and Company. Beyond this is the cheese ring column. This was purchased by Samuel Stevens Marling, who had a stand in the mixed fabrics and shawls section of the exhibition. It is now approximately 300 metres north of All Saints Church in Selsley, near Stroud. To the west is a statue of Richard Coeur de Lion. This is a model of the bronze casting now in Old Palace Yard, Westminster, based on the plaster version shown at the exhibition. Although the bas-reliefs on the pedestal were not present at the Great Exhibition, we include them in our model as the left side relief is not normally visible, as it is beyond the Palace of Westminster security barrier. To the northwest of the main exhibition building is the boiler house, which contains steam boilers to power the moving machinery, the steam being carried via an underground pipe to the main building. On the south side of the western entrance to the building are examples of coal, and at the extreme southwest of the enclosure is a beam made using Portland cement which was tested to destruction at the end of September 1851. Re-entering the building via the southwest door, we come to a cabinet for displaying mineral waters by Richard Ellis, which is now in the Royal Pump Room Museum in Harrogate. Continuing east, we come to a statue of William Wallace. The statue from the exhibition is believed lost. This is a statue of a virtually identical pose in Baltimore. We continue east through the agricultural passage, and then turn north back towards this fireproof safe by John Tan, which is now at the London Silver Vaults. We turn south again to enter the Sheffield Court from the south side. Here we find 2 exhibition files by Hiram Younge, both now at Kelham Island Museum in Sheffield. One is in the main museum, the other in the Ken Hawley collection. To the left of the files are scissors and penknives by T&G Wilkinson, also now at the Ken Hawley collection. On the west wall is a 5-foot diameter circular saw blade by Spear and Jackson. We continue north back into the nave where we find a cast iron fireplace mantelpiece by Henry Hoole, also now at the Kelham Island Museum. In the middle of the nave is a display case by Joseph Rogers and Sons, the centerpiece of which is the Norfolk knife, now at the Cutlers Hall in Sheffield. Returning west we come to the Coalbrookdale Dome, under which stands John Bell's Eagle Slayer. This is one of 2 versions which were displayed at the Great Exhibition. This one is now at the Coalbrookdale Museum of Iron. On the north side of the nave are 3 Ashford black marble tables by Thomas Woodruff, 2 of which are now at Buxton Museum and Art Gallery. Returning to the nave we pass a lighthouse lens and the large astronomical telescope by Ross. We now turn north again and enter the building court. Here we find a cross-section of a building showing the construction techniques for Prince Albert's model houses for the labouring classes. A complete model house consisting of 4 3-bedroom family flats was constructed across the road from the exhibition building in Hyde Park Barracks. After the exhibition it was moved to Kennington, where it is now used as the headquarters for the charity Trees for Cities. As we return to the nave we come to this magnificent pair of Wellington boots by John Hefford, and a set of women's mule by James Dowry. Both of these are now at Northampton Museum and Art Gallery. Continuing west from here we come to a marketplace fountain by Seeley. Beyond this is another lighthouse lens, and beyond that a model of Liverpool docks. We now turn to the south to another recreation of a lost sculpture, Constantine Panormo's Liberation of Caractacus. Behind that is a jacquard loom, which we pass as we climb the stairs. At the top of the stairs we turn east, where we find a cabinet containing a botanical display of anatomized plants by Emma King. This is now at the Taupo Museum in New Zealand. Returning west, crossing the bridge and continuing west, we come to George Merriweather's Tempest Prognosticator, a barometer based on the questionable principle of leech behavior to predict the weather. The original 1851 Tempest Prognosticator is lost. This model is based on a copy made for the 1951 Festival of Britain, which is now at Whitby Museum. We now pass in front of a magnificent organ by Willis, now in Winchester Cathedral. Turning east once more we come to a collection of illustrations of the moon by amateur astronomer and artist James Nasmyth. This is the same James Nasmyth who invented the steam hammer displayed in the machinery at Rescourt on the ground floor. Continuing east we come to George Richard Smith's Comic Electric Telegraph, which is now at Bristol 1904 Arts. There are 3 buttons, each of which operates a small shutter within the box to reveal the same symbol as etched on the respective button. Simultaneously the buttons move the jaw, move the eyes and sound the bell. Amazingly the device is still operational. We now cross the bridge towards the north wall and turn east to enter the anatomical section. Here is a wax model of a dissected head by Joseph Town. This is now at the Gordon Museum of Pathology. We now move rapidly eastwards towards the transept, turning north to the stand of Samuel Alcock and Company. Here is the Plate of All Nations now in a private collection. We continue north, where we find several statuettes. Then we turn east again, passing over Schweppes main refreshment court. We then turn south until we arrive at Gulliver in Lilliput by Adolf Fleischmann. This is now at the German Toy Museum in Sonneberg. Turning east we come to the next new addition for this update. The majority of the north wall of the gallery on the east side of the building was devoted to stained glass. We have added the dark partition in which the various pieces of stained glass were mounted, and we have added the first few pieces. Here are 2 pieces by Stephan Kellner of Nuremberg. These are now in the collections of the Victoria and Albert Museum. Further east are two pieces by Isaac Alexander Gibbs. These pieces are believed lost, but illustrations survive, as can be seen with this watercolor. We now continue along the gallery, to the east end of the gallery. We then turn south and then west again, before turning south once more to be able to pass in front of the Gray and Davison organ. This organ is now in St Anne's Limehouse. We now continue round the south side of the gallery and then turn west until we reach the eastmost stairs. We then go down the stairs. Note the east of the building is primarily for foreign exhibitors. At the bottom of the stairs we turn south and then east, to exit the building via the door at the southeast corner of the building, which leads us to the enclosure for large foreign exhibits. Outside the east end of the building we find the granite cross by Carl August Kullgren. This is now located on a hillside outside Droget, in Sweden. We now proceed north and re-enter the building via the eastern entrance. In front of us is the Iron Truss Bridge exhibited by the New York Iron Bridge Company. To our left we can see chandeliers by Cornelius and Company of Philadelphia. Passing over the bridge we come to Hiram Powers the Greek slave, which was mounted on a rotating base. This is now at Raby Castle, complete with the same base although it no longer rotates. Continuing west, we come to this large Swedish porphyry jar. Beyond that is Eve and the Serpent by Johannes Antonius van der Ven. This is now at Bootle Town Hall. Next comes a half-size model for a pedestal for a statue of Friedrich Wilhelm III. This half-size model is believed lost, however the full-size pedestal and statue are now in Berlin's Tiergarten Park, upon which this model is based. It stands between the Stuttgart horses, which are now at Die Rossebandiger Stuttgart. However, due difficulty in accessing the originals, our simulation uses models of similar pose alternate statues. Next comes the Bavarian Lion by Ferdinand Miller, which is now part of the quadriga on Munich's Seegester. Again, due to difficulty in accessing the original, our simulation uses a model of a similar pose alternate statue. Looking at the next three pieces, King George of Podebrady, on the left, and Queen Libussa of Bohemia, on the right, are both by Ludwig Schwanthaler, and both are now in the National Museum in Prague. Between them is Erdmann Theodor Kalide's Boy with Swan. The version at the Great Exhibition is now at Osborne House, although the model here is based on an alternate version in Matejki Square, Warsaw, Poland. Next comes a copy of the colossal Amazon and Tiger by August Case. This is a model of the original, which stands outside the Altes Museum in Berlin. We now divert north to see Tableau of a Rural Fete from Sonneberg. At the centre back is a model of Schloss Rosenau at Coburg, the birthplace of Prince Albert. Returning to the nave there are several more copies of famous sculptures, represented here by models of the originals, including Resting Deer by Rauch, now at Sanssouci, Potsdam Wild Park. Here is Eve at the Fountain by Bailey, now at Bristol Museum and Art Gallery. Hebe by Canova at the State Hermitage Museum, St. Petersburg. Kneeling Niobe by Timotheos, now at the State Museum of Art, Copenhagen. Turning south we enter the Austrian Sculpture Court, passing this sculpture of Radetzky by Fernkorn. This area held several sculptures by Monti, Fraccaroli, Galli and Strasser. Leaving the Austrian Sculpture Court, we return to the nave to enter this massive viewing box, which houses Giuseppe Bertini's Magnificent, Dante, and some of his ideas. As we leave we come to Fraccaroli's Wounded Achilles. Continuing west along the nave we come to a collection of sculptures from Belgium, the centerpiece of which was a copy of Eugene Simoni's Godefroy de Bouillon, represented here by a model of the original in Place Royale, Brussels. It is surrounded by other pieces by Simonis, Jahot, Freikin, Gifs and Jacquet, including another recreation of a lost piece, Jacquet's Cupid Disarmed. Just north of this is the Young Giotto drawing by Joseph Tuerlinks, now at Museum Hof van Busleiden Mechelen. As we continue west we enter the France section of the exhibition. Turning south we find the stand of Edouard Honoré, displaying items of porcelain. Returning to the nave, we come to a collection of sculptures from France, including works by Debay, Le Chesnay, Etex, Le Quesnay, and Duseigneur. The last of these is The City of Paris Imploring God for the Victims of Cholera by Etex. The model is of the version now in the entrance porch of the Chapel of the Salpêtrière in Paris. We continue west past the organ by Alexandre Ducroquet, and the fountain by J.P. Victor André. We now turn north, passing a cabinet which displayed musical instruments by Belgian Adolphe Sax, the inventor of the saxophone. We continue north to the Algerian corridor, and from here we turn north into the room featuring Beauvais and Gobelin tapestries, Sèvres porcelain, and various French sculptures. We return to the nave via the Rome section featuring sculptures by various Rome-based sculptors and mosaics by Domenico Moglia. Turning west again we pass Benzoni's Cupid and Psyche, represented here by the copy now at Musée Marmottan Monet in Paris. Continuing west we pass Bacchus by Lorenzo Nencini, now at Villa Vauban in Luxembourg. Further west we pass a Spanish wine jar, or tinaja, before coming to 3 British sculptures. On the north side of the nave is William Calder Marshall's Dr. Jenner, now in Kensington Gardens. In the middle is the Marquise of Bute, by John Evans Thomas, now at Callaghan Square, Cardiff. On the south side is John Flaxman by Musgrave Lewthwaite Watson, now at University College London. Back in the centre of the nave is the Prince of Wales shield, now at Windsor Castle, and the Koh-i-Noor diamond. This is before it was recut in 1852. Next is John Bell's Andromeda, now in the grounds of Osborne House. Beyond this is a portrait of Prince Albert on Sèvres porcelain. On the other side is a portrait of Queen Victoria. We continue west, crossing the transept, to return once more to the British nave, passing Horse and Dragon and the Canada section, and turning south into the medieval court. Above the doorways on the north wall are various stained glass windows, and below them the monument to Bishop Walsh, now at St Chad's Cathedral in Birmingham. In the middle of the room is the final new addition for this update, the stove by Hardman. The stove itself does not survive, but many of the tiles can be found in museums and private collections. We acknowledge the assistance of Mark Graham at PuginTiles.com for assistance in creating this model. Don't forget the simulation can now be downloaded from Steam. It is free of charge, and always will be. Although best when used with a VR headset, if you don't have a headset it will also work in desktop mode, using your monitor, keyboard and mouse.